Hello guys, how's it going? My name is Dalaran, and in this video we'll be taking a look at some of the changes Blizzard wanted to and even went back on for Unholy Death Knight. We'll be going through what is going on there because it's a bit of a mess, let's be honest. And then we have Blood Death Knight changes. Blizzard decided to make one of their abilities a talent, same thing goes for Unholy, but they gave them back another talent like as a switcheroo, like a swap. So let's take a look at some of the changes. The two specs of Death Knight that I haven't really been checking out and keeping up with as much, the Blood DK and Unholy. Let's see what's new with them and what Blizzard is planning to do with them, at least for this build and maybe in the next. So we're on Unholy right now, but let's go to the Blood DK real quick, just so we can go over the new update with DKs. Now, I have mostly been focusing on Frost Death Knight. So there's a good bit of nuance and detail that with Blood and Unholy, I wouldn't really know. I'm mostly here just to give you guys what happened with the updates recently, but by no measure am I pro at any of these two specs. So the Blood Death Knight, the one thing they did is they actually switched around a talent and an ability in places. So Blood Death Knights have actually gotten a talent to be baseline. You can actually see it in my boss right here. It's called Ossuary. Ossuary, I believe, was in this row right here, which would be, well, on the forums it says level 58 row, but I think on live it'll be level 30 row. So Ossuary becomes baseline, but you have at least 5 charges of Bone Shield, which you'll probably have more than that as a Blood Death Knight in all situations. The cost of Death Strike is reduced by 5 runic power. Additionally, your maximum runic power is increased by 10. So as a Blood Death Knight, you can store up to quite a bit of runic power actually. This is really cool, and this talent has been the go-to for most Blood Death Knights. First of all, in most Blood Death Knight situations, these talents are kind of all over the place for me because I haven't set up my Blood DK at all, so it automatically defaults to the left row. But in most Death Knight situations, there's one talent that's the best in majority of situations in the row, and that's something that I've had to deal with in most BFA, really only having one viable choice. Of course, you could try the other talents in the same row, but there's usually one optimal, the best play that you can have for your DK, and it'll be stuff like Homeostasis in this row. Normally it would be Ossuary in level 30 row, Will Necropolis in this row. I think it'll be Red Thirst or Purg. Well, listen, I think it's mostly Purg for progression, and I think it's Bloodworms in level 45 row. So certain rows, there's just one talent that just kind of dominates them all. One of the things that Blizzard wanted to do with this one is take one of those dominant talents like Ossuary and make it baseline. So with this talent, it not only gives you more runic power, but it also cuts the cost of your Death Strike. For Blood DKs, using Death Strike and being able to use it is huge, and especially at the beginning of expansion, there's not going to be enough haste to go around. So being able to get enough haste to get all your resources cycled through so you can get your runic power back faster, and you can get all the runic power and runic based abilities to unuse faster, it's going to be harder. But with Ossuary as a talent, being able to get enough runic power to be able to get Death Strikes, like 3 of them in a row, back to back to back, it's huge for the playstyle. Death Strike is the main mechanic for Blood DK. You will take big chunky hits into your big health bar, and then you'll Death Strike the enemy immediately as soon as you take a massive hit to heal either all that damage or majority of it. So Death Knight take huge hits, but the bigger the hits they take, the bigger the heal is. So they have this massive pool of health. You take massive hits, you heal massive hits, so your health kind of bounces around like a yo-yo and sometimes. But having Ossuary as a passive makes sense. So Ossuary becomes a passive, but Blizzard also decided, well, since this ability is becoming a passive, we gotta obviously take a Death Knight ability and put it into the talents. So they took Blood Tap out of this base toolkit. Blood Tap isn't a major ability. It's a 1-minute recharge with 2 charges. Consumes essence around you, which basically means you press the button, you generate 1 rune. Recharge time is reduced by 2 seconds whenever a Bone Shield charge is consumed. As a Death Knight, you take quite a lot of damage from bosses, and in trash packs, you go through Bone Shield charges pretty quickly. So Blood Tap being moved into the talents is kind of like a prune, which I don't agree with ever. Blood Tap as an ability is an interesting one because it's actually off GCD, so you can use it in between of abilities. And what this does is gives you a free rune, which can be helpful in those like really high stress situations of Blood DK when you're struggling to stay alive against a boss or many enemies in trash packs. I think it would have been cool for maybe to give Ossuary back to Blood DKs, but then put something new in the talent row, something that's kind of fitting. You have File Bulwark, which each time a bone shield, each charge of bone shield increases your health by 1%. Relish in Blood, where Crimson Scourge is active, your next Death and Decay will heal you for a bunch of health per bone shield charge. So it seems like this whole row of abilities deals with bone shield charges, which is why I think they put in Blood Tap in that row, because all these abilities in some way or another interact with bone shield charges. I think having Blood Tap baseline is a nice ability, and I thought it was kind of cool to have something like this for Blood DK, have something that you can press in between of globals to kind of speed up your gameplay a little bit, and gives you a little bit of this emergency button use if you wanted to. I thought it was cool thematically, but having this ability back on the talents doesn't feel as good. I'm glad that Blood Death Knight's got us already because most of them play it, and I wonder how this will shake up the meta, but that's going to be the change that happened to Blood DKs recently. Now we got Unholy Death Knight. There's quite a bit going on here, and there's already a blue post that came out by Blizzard talking about one of the reversion of some of the changes they've done. Blizzard's whole purpose in this update was to try to help Unholy Death Knights fix their GCD long openers, as Unholy Death Knights are pretty notorious right now on the beta for having a very long opener with a lot of GCD's abilities. So your openers take quite a bit of time. Blizzard wanted to cut it down. The obvious choice would have been to, I think, to make certain big button abilities off GCD, but Blizzard didn't really do that. A lot of the Unholy Death Knight abilities have a bonus effect, but they are on GCD. So I thought they should have went by the way of Frost Death Knight, and I'll share what I mean by that. But we also got some abilities baseline, so let's first take a look at that. So in a level, I think it's 45 row, you can see Unholy Pact is now in this row. We have Pestilence on the left side, Defile on the right, Unholy Pact in the middle, and what ability is missing? Well, Epidemic, as it becomes a baseline ability into the Unholy Death Knight toolkit. This is a really good change, because Epidemic I feel like is an ability I've always been drawn to as a Death Knight, whether it's Mythic Pluses or whether it's a real AoE situations, not just a few target cleave. Also, Epidemic is pretty cool when there's no target cap, as this ability deals damage to all enemies, not kind of target cap or anything. Same thing with a Virulent Plague. Every time it erupts to infect a target, it also does shadow damage to nearby enemies as well. So I think this together with Epidemic and maybe going for a Mythic Plus setup where your group is as many classes that have no cap on AoE as possible to really get through a bunch of enemies and kind of burst things down could give Unholy Death Knight a little bit of this edge. Originally they had this edge because dropping down Death and Decay or Death Stew in this situation would allow your Scourge Strike to hit all targets, but that recently has been capped, so at least you have the Epidemic Outbreak combo. I think this is going to be really interesting for Unholy Death Knights, and I wonder how often we'll see them in Mythic Pluses. I certainly do hope they get a bit of play. But Epidemic being baseline is cool. They even attach Sudden Doom, so whenever Sudden Doom procs, you can get Death Call or Epidemic at no cost. So it's cool that Blizzard is trying to weave this ability as the runic power spender that focused on AoE. I think it's really, really cool when you drop down Death and Decay. You'll use runes on Scourge Strike, and then you can use that runic power on Epidemic to do cohesive AoE damage without having to pick this talent against other talents in an AoE row. I don't know how good Unholy Pact is, but you can even see right here, Unholy Pact procs off of Apocalypse now instead of Dark Transformation, and that's what we'll be talking about. Summon Gargoyle also has been moved back to the talents. I don't even remember what was in this row actually. I guess Unholy Pact was there, so they moved Unholy Pact up, made Epidemic baseline, dropped Summon Gargoyle in here. Summon Gargoyle is on GCD. I really think they should have just kept this baseline and maybe just taken off the GCD off this ability. I don't know if that would have made Unholy Death Knights that much more broken by having it off of GCD. I always like the ability of having so many pets, and I'll talk about that in a bit. So Unholy Summon Gargoyle, they put this on the talent row. Unholy Pact in here, Epidemic baseline, and then as I said earlier, they fused Dark Pact or Dark Transformation and Apocalypse together. So when I pop Apocalypse, I'll actually have my pet get empowered, as you can see. So Dark Transformation and your Apocalypse are now same ability, which is a very interesting way for Blizzard to do it, honestly. They decided to do this because they felt that using Apocalypse, using Dark Transformation, Gargoyle, setting up a full Army of the Dead was maybe too many GCDs. So they decided that, you know what, we're going to try to cut down on as many GCDs as we humanly can. The fuse of this ability didn't really work out with the Death Knight community. The way I had this explained to me is Apocalypse is a really good ability on a single target fight. You'll summon your pets and it'll attack that one singular target. While Dark Transformation is, while a decent ability for a single target, it will make your pet's claw ability, which does minor amount of damage, do a little bit more, like it almost doubles the damage, but it also gives your pet ability to cleave in AoE. So you would use Dark Transformation in AoE pools, you would use Dark Apocalypse mostly for single target pools, and in certain fights you can kind of split them. So Dark Transformation here in a pure AoE situation, then next trash back, maybe there's that one guy that has a lot of health and really needs to go down quickly. You'll Apocalypse him down and single target him down. So you can kind of separate him and use him whenever you want to. It gave you that freedom. But both of those abilities are in GCD, and when you're trying to summon your full army, trying to get the Apocalypse up and running, transforming your Ghoul, summoning your Gargoyle, all those abilities were in GCD. So Blizzard decided to try to prune the GCD of Unholy Death Knight, but it resulted in a prune of abilities. Already in a blue post, Blizzard mentioned that in next build, they're going to be separating Apocalypse and Dark Transformation in the next build. So that's already on the way. As for the rest of these changes, it looks like they're here to stay unless we hear something more from Blizzard. I'll probably make an updated, if Unholy Death Knights go through a massive change, I'll probably make another updated video for the next week, but this is where we're at right now. Another thing that Blizzard added into the playstyle for Unholy Death Knight is actually, they made it so Apocalypse, Death Call has a baseline cooldown reduction for Apocalypse on a 1.5 second CD. And together with the talent of Army of the Damned, which adds an extra second as well, I do wonder how fast could we get our cooldown back. So what I'm going to do is try to generate as many resources as I can for Death Calls and just spam as many Death Calls after using Apocalypse, just to show you how fast could this ability be. Okay, so we're going to use Apocalypse right here. And I'm not going to be playing this like proper Unholy Death Knight playstyle or anything. I don't really know much about Unholy Death Knight in terms of that regard. I'm just going to focus on trying to generate as much runic power as I can in order to get as many Death Calls out. So one more Death Call is out. We got it to about 50 seconds, 49 seconds. I had another one where I had it about 44 seconds, but you take Apocalypse, which is a 1.3 minute cooldown, that uses both Dark Transformation and summons your pets from 1.3 minute, with Army of the Damned, which also further goes to reduce the cooldown, as far as I'm to understand, to about 49, 44, 50 seconds, somewhere around that ballpark. Which I guess means this is a shorter cooldown than Dark Transformation is, because Dark Transformation was a minute long cooldown, Apocalypse is a 1.3 minute cooldown, so I guess you technically do get a shorter cooldown for both of those abilities, but the Death Knight community wasn't really super happy with this. So again, Blizzard did mention that Dark Transformation and Apocalypse are getting separate. I don't know if Blizzard will keep the Death Coil cooldown reduction on Apocalypse. I think that's pretty cool. But I do hope they don't really put too many chips into Apocalypse. I really wouldn't want for Unholy Death Knights to, for some reason, in the next build, to become a spec where you're all about the Apocalypse damage. I don't really want them to become like a Berserk class and become basically the Arcane Mage 2.0, where Arcane Mages, at least in BFA, have a very short cooldown on their arcane power, or like a Paladin with wings, I guess, is a better example. Paladins do a lot of damage during wings. Outside of wings, they don't do a lot. So I'm hoping Unholy Death Knights are not heading in that similar direction, where you have Death Coil give you the cooldown reduction. Most of your damage will come from Apocalypse, but then your damage outside of Apocalypse will be kind of lame. I'm hoping it'll be another story. I'd rather Unholy be like a very sustainy playstyle spec. I feel like it fits its identity really, really well. But there are a couple things I would love for Unholy to see. So one biggest thing, and again, not a pro with Death Knight, but I really, really like this about Unholy when they first brought it up for Shadowlands, is just the amount of undead pets. I think it's impossible to not love Unholy and love just the amount of all these undead pets that you get to summon. From your Ghoul to the full Army of the Dead, the second army from your Apocalypse, which is on a much shorter cooldown. And you can summon your Gargoyle, transform your Ghoul into this massive monstrosity, and have this full Army of the Undead with you. I love that aspect of Unholy. I always thought it was really, really cool and unique. And I was kind of hoping they would keep it. Even though you are summoning all those pets, and it's all in GCD, yes, it was really cool to have this massive, massive army behind you at all times. And it's just so unique and cool to the playstyle, I was really excited for it. But hearing that there are pruning abilities back to the talents, like your Gargoyle, and removing Dark Pact, which at least they're bringing that back, it is a little bit sour, I guess, in a way. What if Blizzard, and I guess this is my opinion here, made Gargoyle still baseline, just added something different in the bottom talent row? I think it's fine to keep Unholy Pact where it is, because This is a AoE talent with some single target potential, as the ability does grow in size and whatnot. Then you have Pestilence, which has single target potential to pop festering wounds on enemies, especially if you're going to be playing Fae. You're going to be dropping down Death's Due quite often, so you'll get quite value out of this. But also can be used in AoE, as Death and Decay has a chance to put up festering wound on enemies, and you can pop those wounds with Scourge Strike. But then you have Unholy Pact, which can be used on a single target boss, but it's pretty good for AoE as well. It might need some pet control to make sure that they're between you and your pet for those flaming chains to do the full damage, but the extra 5% strength could also be really cool. Like, I like the row to be like cleave E, single target E row. I think it kind of sort of fits, but I guess if they were to, let's say, make Gargoyle baseline again, which I think would be cool. I was actually so excited to play with Gargoyle again in this expansion. If they were to make a baseline, I don't really know what they will put back in here. I really do like them making a pandemic baseline. I think that's a really good change. I think Unholy Death Knights and even Frost Death Knights, they really needed something that's a runic power spender that deals with AoE damage. Frost Death Knights technically have Remorseless Winter that does some AoE, but it's nowhere near as good as Breath of Zaragoza or Glacial Advance, which at least has like some bonus effects and is a valid rune power spender. But I guess Frost Death Knights are nowadays focusing on Obliterates, which is quite a bit of a single target damage, so you'll go for more Cleave. You could talent yourself for more AoE, you can challenge yourself for more Cleave or single target. It kind of works out for Frost Death Knights, I guess. They still probably need something more for runic power for AoE, just feels like something is missing. So for Unholy, that missing gap of runic power spender that's focused for AoE, that's there, and it's present, as without this ability, you actually don't have too many abilities to use as an Unholy Death Knight. Like, this is a talent, this ability is a talent, and that's really about it. You would have, what, Apocalypse, you would have Death's Due, you would have Army, and that's really it. You don't really have a lot of abilities. As you can see, my bar is pretty empty. It's missing that Gargoyle, and it's missing that Dark Pact, which Dark Pact is coming back again. I gotta reiterate that. So maybe Blizzard will go back into the drawing board, but I always thought it was an Unholy Death Knight. It was really cool and unique how many pets, just the raw amount of this undead army that you summon. And I wonder if it's possible to keep the Gargoyle, keep the Dark Transformation, keep all those pets, just maybe take more stuff off of GCD. So you could still have this massive army of pets, and the Gargoyle runic power spender bonus I thought was really, really cool. Like, have all those same effects, just take more abilities off of GCD. Just take Dark Transformation off of GCD, take Summon Gargoyle off of GCD. Maybe that'll make Death Knights too strong in certain situations like Cleave or single target, maybe even PvP, but it's just a pet, it's just a Dark Transformation. And I know there's some legendaries that work with Dark Transformation as well, but it just doesn't feel to me like it would. I think, if anything, it might be very similar to Frost Death Knights. Having a Rune Weapon and Pillar of Frost off of GCD feels so smooth. And maybe just taking more abilities off of GCD might be the simplest fix. I mean, it worked for Frost Death Knight. Could it potentially work for Unholy? I think it maybe could, while still keeping that fun, unique, flavorful playstyle around it. But that's just my 2 cents about it. Let me know your thoughts, guys, in the comments below. What do you think about the Unholy Death Knight changes, as well as the Blood Death Knight changes that Blizzard has done in this recent update? Again, Dark Transformation in the next build is already planned to be separated for Unholy Death Knights that were really unhappy with this change. Anyway, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see all of you in another video.